Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Beyond Instinct. I am Michael Russell and today I'm here with Jack Stevens from Cookie Cut Media. Hello Jack.
Hello.
Firstly, I will apologise because I've got a little bit of a cold at the moment, so hopefully the audio will come out okay. Jack, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, so I'm Jack. The company is Cookie Cut Media and we're a videography company in the first instance, specialising in video marketing and video marketing strategy.
Fantastic. So thanks for that, Jack. So Jack, we've got Jack on the podcast today because in the theme of Beyond Instinct, we're going to be talking about what Jack's natural instinct is in business,
Yes.
how that's worked for him and where that may have not worked for him and how he had to shift. So upon that subject, what is your natural instinct?
I think my natural instinct in business is to, within reason, kind of question the status quo. I think, people get into business for a number of reasons. They're either following a passion, they're continuing a legacy, or they are motivated by finance. The industry that I'm in is a creative industry. I wanted to get into film. Film studies at university is something that's not always taken particularly seriously as a vocation. And when you tell friends and family that you are going to make a successful career shooting videos, I think generally it's met with quite a lot of negative opinions. People don't necessarily think that it's a career you can carve a living from. So the industry that I'm in, you kind of have to learn to go against the grain a little bit and to challenge perceptions and to follow your natural instincts and to build something that is going to be financially viable, but is also something that continues to give you that passion and keep that spark alive.
And how's that played out from you since the beginning of Cookie Cut?
I mean, in the first instance, it was about the passion of wanting to do this, and wanting to have a creative career in something that I love. It was never initially financially motivated, but as life goes on, that's something that comes into the fore.
Yeah.
But I think without having that kind of creative spark to start off with, it's something that would never have morphed into what it is now, which is a company that's growing and is financially viable and is working on some exciting projects. I think kind of in the early days of Cookie Cut Media, it was me kind of putting myself out there and looking to film anything really for people that A, I found interesting, or B, they're prepared to pay me for. And I think in the early days, I approached the creative industry with a lot of naivety. I think that in reality, you can be very, very good at making video content, but running a business is a completely different ballgame. And I think I had to learn on my feet very quickly to be able to create a business model that would allow me to do the thing that I wanted to do creatively.
Yeah, okay, well, that's interesting. And then what you're saying though is that your natural instinct there is obviously passion-led.
Exactly. Yeah.
Passion-led. And you would film anything to hope that it would turn into something passionate.
Initially, yeah. I mean, I kind of, not to go down a rabbit hole, but my interest was sparked when, and I'm talking kind of, many, many years ago when I was really young. I was on a family holiday in France. My parents had just got a flip phone with a camera, so we're going back a long time. This is when camera phones became a thing, and I had this little toy cheetah, and we were sat at a restaurant out on the street, and they had the little planters around the seating area, and I took this camera phone and I was taking photographs of the cheetah as it got closer to the camera, and I was trying to make it look like it was in a jungle, and then I happened to scroll through the pictures quickly, and the cheetah shot towards the camera through this little plantation thing, this little planter, and that was the thing that sparked my interest in film, because I had created something that someone could maybe watch or enjoy, but for me it was just that amazement of creating a visual thing, and that's the thing that's I think still stays with me today. It's that interest in video that carries me forward. It's the creative spark that carries me forward. The business is kind of a necessary evil to facilitate that.
So at the beginning then, it was more of the fact of you filming or creating media, I guess the words, off the back of a passion, and then the output of that was just, luckily, it was finance, but there wasn't really much of look at finance, or
no, not initially. No.
If you do quality work, then you will get paid for that.
Yeah, exactly that. I mean, when I was going through college, so I decided that I wanted to study film, and that film was something I wanted to do. As I grew up, we made lots of little skit videos with friends, kind of silly comedic things. And then when I went into kind of college and university, I kind of knuckled down and became a lot more focused. And my passion then was in many ways still is documentary. And so for me, it was about finding those interesting stories and I suppose following your instinct to find that interesting subject, create a piece of media, and then everything else will then fall into place afterwards. Once you create that story, you will get people who want to view it. There will be the opportunity for finance. You maybe put in some film festivals, but you've got to find that creative spark, and you've got to have that passion to carry that project through from start to finish. And often, as I say, going against the grain, you're making something new that maybe hasn't been produced before. You need to have that passion and that drive and that motivation to follow a project through to completion. And then often the finance and the business strategy kind of comes after the fact, and that's certainly how I got into the industry. Totally different story now, but that's where I came from.
And I think that says then that obviously there must have been a pivot point.
Yeah, there was. I mean, this got me into university. So then I'm studying at university, 3-year course at university, and obviously they are a lot more career-led. They kind of say, well, how are you going to turn this into a career rather than just having a meaningless media degree or film degree that you then go and work for an estate agent, which happens to a lot of people, because when you leave university, finance becomes the critical thing. You need to start getting on with your life and building a life. And if you are in a creative industry and you are struggling for work, people will often then abandon that creative industry and just go towards whatever's paying in the local area. So I was very fortunate. I set up a small micro business that operated through market stalls, selling leather goods. And that was off the back of my father, that he's a leathersmith by trade, and so he tooled me up and he got me into the industry. He taught me how to make some belts, and so I was running predominantly a cash business for the first couple of years that would pay, and you'd be, and it would probably be a 2 or 3 day a week business, but that they would then allow me time to start building more of a financially viable business that I could then lean into, and so no longer run the market stalls. That became Cookie Cut Media, and that now pays the bills. So I was very, very fortunate that I was able to very quickly set up a small business model that would sustain my financial needs, and was always kind of relatively profitable, but with minimal effort to run, and that would allow me to then take more risks on the media side and actually start to find those clients. And I think the first job I did was for a hi-fi brand that had a retail shop in Cambridge. So, I had a kind of a vague family friendship link with the owner there, and he had just renovated and he was interested in capturing it. So, I put myself forward and I was able to secure that. And I think I charged him £400 or £500 for that job. And that was the first that was the first time someone had really paid me and invested and said, I like what you're doing, I'm going to put some cash on the line. And that £400 or £500 to me was £1 million. I mean, I was earning more through the micro business and the market stalls, but for me, someone has finally turned around to me and said, I want to pay you for your creative ability, for something that you creatively can do for me. And that, I think, was the real catalyst and spark for me to say, actually, there is an industry here, there is something that I can build. And that's when I started to invest a lot more time in the business, and I started to study business more closely, because I realized I can be an amazing videographer, and I see it all too often in the industry. You have really, really talented individuals, but they can't sell themselves, and they can't convince a client that having their wages paid for a couple of days is worth it to the client, because they're very good at what they do, but they don't understand business. So I kind of realised that quite early on, and I think through running the market store, it started to give me a much more nuanced appreciation for business and how business works, even in that kind of micro climate. And so I started to focus on myself, started to develop my skills, started to go to networking groups, not because I wanted to win work, but because I wanted to feed off the other business owners and kind of cut some corners and learn from them and grow more quickly, so that I could build a business model that was able to sell to clients that would then allow me to do what I love to do, and that's make video. And so that really is in the inception of Cookie Cut Media. It was me as a freelancer for a long time. And then as I started to get repeat work, as people started saying, we want to get Jack in, he's done this project for this person, and word of mouth, I thought, well, we need to create a brand. I need to sort of funnel this attention onto something so that I can continue to build the business and we can progress and move forwards. And so Cookie Cut Media was born.
Okay. So I think what I'm hearing there is that you initially said that your instinct is passion.
Yeah.
But I think that your passion is your passion.
Mm.
I feel there's a different instinct there.
There could be, yeah.
Like a driver. What's the driver?
I think for me, the driver is, I'm one of these kind of people that if I'm told I can't do something or it won't work, that's like a red rag to a bull for me. And I've had plenty of support from people along the way. Don't get me wrong, but the endless support that you get from people pales into complete insignificance when someone comes along and says you're never going to make this work. This is never going to be that for me is the motivation. And I think it's proving that you can. For me, it was proving the doubters, that I've come across in my life, and there's not many of them, but it's proving that yes, I can go to university. I can spend an obscene amount of money going to university, racking up that student debt in a creative industry. I can then go out and build my own business to then deliver that creative service to people, and I can make it financially viable. And there's a lot of people along the way that have advised me against it or said go and work for someone else, on projects that they're passionate about. And for me, the big driver is proving those people wrong, I think, in many ways. Determination to set yourself a goal and achieve it. I think it's crucial in this industry, and I think it's something that unfortunately a lot of creatives are just don't have, because it's something that's constantly kind of watered down and taken away and questioned.
Would you say that they live on the passion side still?
I think passion only gets you so far. I think you can be passionate about something because you're good at something, and you find it genuinely interesting. But if there's enough doubt there, or just the time proves that it's not financially viable for you, I think I've seen so many people, even from my university, that were really were very passionate, were very creative, were very engaged, but have gone on to have careers that have nothing to do with their interests, because I think they just become disenfranchised over time, and there's only so many knockbacks someone can take. And I think that's a real shame, something that is a bit of a plague on the industry.
Did you have to change your skill set, or did you always have that skill set? So I think what you're saying to me is there's a lot of creatives out there, and I've noticed it as well, where they will create something and hope that whatever they've created does all of the talking and all of the movement and everything that they want it to do, so they don't have to do it.
Yeah.
And I think that you're saying that may have been where you started, but that's definitely not where you are now. Do you think that was always the way, or did you get to a point where you went, I need to do something different? Like, what's the scenario?
I've always had an appreciation for business and a kind of a relative understanding for business. My parents are self-employed, they run their own company, and I've always kind of been around that, and I've always fed from that. I think through kind of college and, they nurture the creative, so you're less focused on, in terms of career, where's this going to end up? You're more interested in creating the things you're passionate about at the time. And then when you go into university, it's the same, but towards the end, they start to make you focus down on a career and start making you think more seriously about how you're going to make this financially viable. And I think at that point, that was the time for me when I decided to really focus in on the business side of things. I kind of felt confident with the skill set that I built to that point creatively. And I think because of seeing my parents run a company and being around that for most of my life, I appreciated that there was a need to build out my knowledge for business and actually create something that was more stable and more sustainable. So I think there was a pivot point when I came out of university. I needed to earn, and I was running the market stall, and it's a market stall, but it took up a lot of time. And I hit a bit of a point where I thought, hang on a minute, I could really get stuck in a rut here, because I've set up another business to sustain my passion. I'm going to need to take a risk and at some point cut it off and take that kind of leap of faith. And I think that goes back to the instinct. You can create a nice safety net for yourself, but that doesn't necessarily mean you've achieved your goal. And I think for me, I had to hit that point where I got that first job in, it was £400 or £500. Okay, I can't live off of that, but it proved that people are prepared to pay for my skills and services creatively. And that, I think, reignited a new passion, a kind of a hunger to go after that and to leave the market stall business behind, sell off the assets, close it down, and make a go of it in film.
Interesting. So one of the things you said earlier was that there's a lot of people that said, don't do it, and you were like, I'm going to do it, I'm going to prove this.
Yeah.
So that's a common theme with everybody that I've spoken to, including myself.
Right.
Now, I don't know who I was trying to prove it to.
No.
Erin on the last one said she was trying to prove it to her mum.
Yeah.
What's your driver? Who are you?
I mentioned, obviously I started going to networking groups, and I went to these networking groups to develop myself and my personal skill set, and to also kind of reassure myself that there is a career path here. I was networking with other creatives, people that ran agencies, marketing, graphic design, etc., websites, and it was really interesting kind of connecting with those people. And these networking groups often have kind of a figurehead or a leader that runs them, and that generally has quite a good track record in business. And this particular networking group had such a figurehead, and we were just coming out of the recession, so there were businesses there that were struggling but were kind of building themselves back up, and that's kind of just happened to be when I kind of connected and plugged into them. And this figurehead, who I will not name, but
Why?
Because I think it's probably appropriate not to at this stage. At this stage, I think it's probably appropriate not to. But I had a lot of respect for him. He had a very good career in business. He was one of these people that had turned his hand to a lot of different things, offered out very good advice, and generally was kind of a bit of a self-proclaimed kind of blazing track record within the sectors that he applied himself to. And he was very public and very open about being prepared to help and offer the room support, outside of just the general networking. And if there's anybody who's struggling or anybody who needs a bit of advice, and he said, just book in a meeting, let's have a coffee. I'm happy to hear people out. I've seen startups to large multinational company at one point. I'm here to help you. And I thought, I really respect this guy. And so I mean, you can say where the story's going, but I booked in a meeting with him, we had a coffee, and I said, look, I'm struggling to justify the sale, the need for this content. I create great videos, but I can't find people that are prepared to pay more than a couple £100 for it. And they see it as a throwaway item that they might stick out on social. What advice have you got? How can I build this up? And he just looked me in the eye and he said, I'm going to be honest with you. He said, there's another video company that I'm aware of that is in another networking group that I'm associated to, and it's a pair of them, and they're really good. They're going places, they're shooting stuff for National Geographic, they're doing all these things. He said, can I be honest with you? I said, yeah, no, absolutely, and I'm here to learn. He said, it's not for everyone.
No way.
Yeah, he said, it's not for everyone, mate. He said, it's a slog. He said, and I had a daughter at this point, and I was running the market. I still had the market stall company at this point, so I was earning money. But this was kind of a passion that I wanted to invest in. This was my future. The market stall was an enabler. I don't think he knew I had that, but he said, look, I'm aware you've got a daughter and stuff. He said, you really need to think seriously about what you're doing. And his advice basically was pack it in and give up.
And double down on the market.
No, he didn't know I had the market stall. So his advice was just leave it. Go and get a job, stacking shelves somewhere. Go and get a job in a warehouse. Go and do something else. Go and work for a taxi firm. Whatever, take your pick. Just go to someone, get yourself employed. That's my advice. That's how you're going to make a successful career for yourself. It wasn't even necessarily stay working in this industry. And I don't think that it was because he didn't like creatively what I was producing. I just think that he was one of these naysayers that maybe doesn't quite understand the creative industry.
I was going to say, do you think he understood the industry?
No, I don't think so. I think he's one of these people that when a company's doing well, from the creative industry at least, he buddies up to them and he goes, I'm associated, I know these guys, brilliant, and he kind of shares in the glory a little bit. But when there's a creative industry or an individual that's really struggling, I think it's easier for him just to advise them to stop, because I don't think he understands the industry too well. But that, for me, was the single biggest motivator for my business career. And, I haven't said that there's been lots of negatives. There hasn't. My family are incredibly supportive. Friends are incredibly supportive. My partner's incredibly supportive. She's now a company director with me. She's been on the journey almost from the start. So I've had a hell of a lot of positivity around me. But these people, I don't think, have really motivated me anywhere near as much as that half an hour coffee. where someone said just pack it in and give up. That for me was the absolute red rag to the bull. That was me saying, no, I'm not, absolutely no way. And subsequently, ironically, we crossed paths recently, and it couldn't have been more he couldn't. I don't think he remembers the conversation. I don't think he, ever knows that he advised me to pack it in. He is, oh, great to see you doing so well. Yeah, no, always believed in you, and all the normal rhetoric. And I just think I'm really grateful to him for giving me such terrible advice at the time of saying I don't believe in you. Because if he had sat me down and said, well, you could try a bit of this, or you could speak to these people, it'd just be a nothing meeting that would just, it would never have had a lasting impact on me. But having him tell me that I can't do it when I was at that stage, and I had kind of, I would say, feathered the nest. I created a background business that was able to fund and keep food on the table, support my family. I was then building up this new company, and I think just that moment of lack of trust, whatever you want to call it, that lack of confidence, I think, in me just was absolutely the motivator that just got me to press on and power through. And then we hit COVID, and a lot of business talk about COVID. I don't want to get too bogged down by it, but it was tough setting up the business and making it viable through those times. But I think I kept going back to that. Every time I doubted myself or faced a business decision that was particularly complicated, I would just go back to his voice saying, pack it in, and that would get me through,
So interestingly, was the drive, do you think... So I always say that sometimes I think maybe I've got a slightly unhealthy drive to win.
Yeah.
And not at all costs, but I just want to do it. And like I say, I still don't really know who I'm proving it to. I'm kind of almost proving it to myself. I don't know, it's weird.
Yeah.
Do you think that, like the drive, is it a negative drive or is it a positive drive?
I think broadly it's a positive drive. I think
positive off of the back of a negative, though, I guess, isn't it?
Exactly. It could very easily have been a negative. It could very easily have become a thing of, oh my God, he's right. What am I doing? But I think for me, it is a broadly positive drive.
Though, there.
Yeah.
So you always have two decisions on every single scenario that's ever, well, probably more than two, but at least two.
Yeah.
So you could have gone, yep, they're right.
Yeah.
I don't need to do this. And some people would have said that.
Yeah.
What is it that made you go, no way?
I think if I had followed his advice, it would have been me immediately abandoning any kind of confidence that I had in myself.
Right.
And I had confidence in myself. I knew it was going to be tough, and I knew it was going to take time, and I knew, I'm not pretending I've kind of conquered Mount Everest with this, but it has been at times a difficult journey to follow your instinct and believe in yourself, and ultimately build a company that is viable and is somewhat successful. And I think it's very easy to have your confidence knocked by your environment and people around you. And you need to, if you believe in yourself and you're going to buy into yourself, then do it. You can follow advice and you can listen to people, but if someone's goal is to knock you down and take your confidence completely away from your ability to do things, then my advice would be ignore them. Because if you're following your instinct and you are building something that you believe in, there is always going to be someone that tells you can't do it. And if you then fail, there's always going to be someone that will take the glory and say, I told you couldn't do it. Yeah. It's like anything really. There's going to be people that say you can do it. It's people that say you can't. At the end of the day, you need to make your own mind up and stick with it. And I decided that I wanted to do it, and he came along and told me I couldn't. So I thought, well, I've got to prove you wrong then.
So I think that's interesting. So I think my instinct as well is somewhat similar. Like I've got confidence, I'm going to do this, I can learn it, or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
Along my journey, I've had times where maybe that's been shaken.
Oh yeah.
And I'm assuming you have as well.
Oh yeah.
So, can you play out one of those scenarios?
I mean, yeah, there's been plenty of occasions where, well, not plenty of occasions, but there have been occasions where you end up questioning whether what you're doing is right. I mean, it's like any business, there's going to be ups, there's going to be downs. And it's easy to allow these kind of negative thoughts to creep in and to dominate your instinct. It's easy to allow, critics or the P&L sheet or, your pipeline, customers coming in or people complimenting your work to be the barometer for success. if you are a sensible business owner, you will have a 5-year, a 10-year plan, and you'll have goals in place. And sometimes it's a rocky road to get there, and it's very easy to allow yourself to be thrown off by events that are happening in the round, in the now. But you need to stay focused on your goals, and you need to find ways of pushing through it. So for me, it is about having that instinct and sticking to it, but being kind of open to the idea of flexing and changing. You know, I can't think of any specific examples where I've had to overcome adversity, but there's been plenty. I mean, there's been occasions where there's been a significant lack of work, and you think, okay, how am I going to pay the bills this month? You know, and it's at those times where you question your own self-worth and what you're doing, and whether or not it is viable, whether you should carry on. But you've also got to look back at the work and effort and time you've put in to get yourself to that place, and that's, for me, what you'd be giving up on. You know, it's very easy to throw the towel in the moment because something's gone wrong, something doesn't play out the way you expect, a client isn't happy with the video, you know, in the simplest sense. Yeah. But you've got to look back and say, but where have I come from? I'm better than this, and I'm going to work a way through it. I'm going to find a way through it. And you've got to have that determination and motivation and self-belief in it at times to push on. But with a bit of modesty, and I think you've got to be understanding as well. You can't be ignorant. So it's striking that balance, I think.
Yeah, it's learning from it as well.
Exactly.
Making sure you don't go there again.
Yeah.
I think that's a really good point. I think that, you know, with I mean, you know some of mine, I know some of yours, those scenarios where it only takes 3 or 4 knocks, say in a day or a week or a month, where you'd normally get, I don't know, 1 every 3, that can make you question that.
Yeah.
Can make you question it. I mean, over time, when I was at the beginning of the business journey, I think you're more exposed to it because you haven't experienced it. For sure. Yeah. I think towards the end now, like, I use the word lag time. I just think that's all right. This will sort itself out. Yeah. Like you just get this kind of arrogant confidence that this is going to be all right.
Or you become used to conflict and resolution. You know, you realise
if it's a complaint about a video or something.
Yeah, you know, and just to want to put it out there, we don't get many complaints about our videos, but the reality is...
You wouldn't be successful if you did, so...
Thank you. But, you know, the reality is there's always going to be conflict and resolution in any business, day to day, and there's times where there's a lot more conflict than there is resolution. There's a lot more problems, and it's about having that clarity of thought to be able to pull yourself out of it, exactly what you kind of said, and just take stock of where you're at, and make a new plan and move forward. You know, it's very easy to be derailed by those things. It's very easy to be derailed by people that you respect in business that tell you you're not going to be able to do it. But it's up to you whether you allow that to derail yourself, and that's what.
And that would have come out the greatness of his heart. I'm assuming he wouldn't have said that to be horrible.
I don't think he was doing it. I don't think he was doing it to be, to be horrible. But it was very much I've got the easy answer here. You know, just don't do it. You know, you kind of think, okay.
But what I mean is somebody that obviously you just said you respect is telling you something that they genuinely think will help you. That's hard not to listen to sometimes.
I think so, but I think you've also got to take it with context. It was for him, I saw it as it was the easy answer.
Yeah.
It was the easy answer. It was the answer. What he was saying in a roundabout way is, this is going to be a tough road. You know, setting up and running creative industry, setting up and running any business is hard. Yeah. And I think he maybe took stock of me as a person and just went, I don't think you can do it. You know, it could be it could be.
You ever thought he may have said that to spur you on?
No.
Okay.
I would love it if he did. I would love it if he did, because then he
would go agenda. That'd be great.
Go back into my books as an absolute business genius. But I genuinely just think he looked at me and thought, you're young, you know, just come out of a recession. Business is tough at the minute, mate. Go and get yourself employed somewhere and look after your family. I think that's what, and I think it was just an easy answer for him.
I think at that time as well, I remember that time, there was quite a few people that had like freelance style businesses that went and got re-employed.
Yeah, because a lot of people jumping ship. It was the thing to do. And I think he just thought, yeah, I've got the easy answer for you, mate. Do this. But that wasn't the answer I wanted, because I don't think he realised the passion and drive that I truly had, and what I had gone through, my journey to get myself to that point, having that coffee with him. You know, this is a moment's conversation for him. This is years and years of hard work for me. So it's easy for him to say, throw the towel in. Yeah. You know, and if I just bought myself a little video camera the other day and just decided I could make videos now, and I then sat down with him, I'd have probably listened to him. But I've spent years doing this at this point, and I thought, no, you know, I can make a good video. I just need help how to set it. I need help with the business model side of things. And I was hoping that's what I was going to get from him. But,
well, you did, actually, in a way.
I think I got something far more valuable. I got the blind determination to power through at all cost. Yeah. So, and here I am today.
So I think that's a really good point, actually. So, when you find yourself in those scenarios where things aren't going quite right, you're questioning what's going on, whether you haven't got the finance, you haven't got the clients, you don't believe you've got the ability, you're getting that imposter syndrome where all of a sudden a big client's gone with you.
Yep.
You've gone from, small clients, all of a sudden a massive client out of nowhere has turned up and you think, am I skilled for this? Do I have the experience?
Yeah, I remember that happened to me. I remember that, yeah.
What are the techniques, or what is it that you do that, you may have done this subconsciously, but if we were to dig in on this now, what is it that's made you go, no, I can do it?
So I'm a super reactive person. I think I find problem solving actually more easy. I remember I had my quote unquote big break. It was our first TV client. So it was our first proper TV client. They had budgets that were roughly 8 times what we were used to working with. So I saw them as a big fish at the time. And I sat down with a meeting with them. Then it was between us and one of our larger competitors in the area that at the time was churning out projects at that size on a regular basis. And we thought, well, we're going to give it a good go to win them. And I sat down with the CEO of the company and I said, look, this is our roadmap. This is what we do. And he went, well, I like you far more better than the other guy, so let's just get started. And I couldn't believe it in that moment that someone would again put that kind of trust and budget into what we were doing. But then, and my reaction was like, this is brilliant. Hey, we've done it. And then it was just sheer dread because now we have to prove ourselves. Yeah. And I find those moments in your business career far more developing, far more, just so much better for you as a business owner in terms of your self-development and your ability to grow and create the company you want than the day-to-day issues. There's been plenty of times where you maybe don't feel like you've got the right tools to deal with the day-to-day issues, but you've got to just lean on your network and you've got to just find ways around it. For me, the bigger moments have come when we've gone, oh my God, we got exactly what we asked for, and now we need to make it work.
You like a problem.
I love a problem.
That's what it is.
I don't like being bored. I enjoy a problem. I think I've learned to love problems. Any business owner, unless they're incredibly fortunate, will become very adverse to issues and risk, and will become very good at dealing with problems on the fly. And I think that's something that I feed from. But I like having nice problems. I like having problems where
more good than bad, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. A client's invested a load of money in you and said, right, let's do this brilliant film idea. Let's shoot this TV ad. Let's shoot whatever. And you've then got to make that happen. That's a brilliant problem to have.
Yeah, I think that's a current theme as well. I think that a lot of people that have been startups or sort of entrepreneurship, they like problems to solve.
Yeah.
And we were talking about this earlier. You get to a point where the business is doing really, really well. There's nothing more than an entrepreneur just get itchy that they're going to start and do it all over again.
Right.
Where, realistically, okay, this is at level 3, let's get to level 4 with the business versus start all over again. But that's the thing, when the business starts doing well and running smoothly and everything else, the problems get less. Yeah. So you either create your own problem by doing something all over again or deciding to go to another level or whatever it might be, or you're going to go and find some problems.
I think because when you've built a company from nothing, you have that motivation to see progress. And I think when you plateau because you're in a comfortable place, the perception is progress has stopped and that's a killer. Yeah. So you've got to keep pushing for it. And I think
you get wired in a certain way. I think you're just wired to growth.
Yeah. I think.
But your idea of growth changes.
Yeah.
So like what you said, you might have seen a brilliant week of doing 5 people at £300 a talking heads.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden you just said there, we got this client that's 8 times what people would normally spend. And we thought they were big, and then you added in at the time.
Yeah.
Now obviously that's not what you see. So you could win somebody now at a £30,000 shoot and go, okay, yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Which is lovely, right? Yeah. We're not disregarding that that's a great client, but it doesn't get the same buzz.
Yeah, and that's where I think.
Unless maybe the creative's really interesting.
I think that's where being an entrepreneur becomes a risky business. Yeah. Because now you're doing it for a totally different reason. Before you wanted to prove that you could actually do it. And now you've achieved that, you're willing to take different kind of risks because you want to, like you said, take it to the next level, whatever that may be. And I think that's an exciting time for an entrepreneur. That's an exciting time for a business owner because you can now start to, instead of just creating something that works, you can create something that works for you. And you can create something that you want to you want to be in charge of, you want to put your name to. That's a really exciting time.
And it's not usually for finance.
No.
So we were having a chat earlier about various different things and moving businesses forward and things. We didn't even touch on finance.
No, I mean we crunch the numbers, but it's not
has to make sense.
Yeah, it has to make sense. It has to be viable, but
the finance is the output, isn't it?
It was exciting discovering the issues that may crop up, and coming up with a plan to get around those. Yeah, I mean, that's what motivates us, I think. So. And it needs to, because if you just focus on the numbers, you're never going to progress forward.
I think I'm a big believer that companies stall or even burn when you focus on numbers.
Yeah.
Like the numbers so you should be really clear on what you're doing, what you're offering in, what your market is.
Yeah.
And if you do that really, really well and you keep customers happy, do you know what? You get finance. That's just the output of it.
Yeah.
Yes, you should be looking at it to tweak, for efficiencies and stuff, of course. I'm not going to say like just blindly just go and try and do stuff. But I think when you start with finance in mind, it's a very short-term gain.
Well, it's like it's kind of like, in many ways, it's about efficiency and it's about finance, and these things make sense on paper. They make sense on a spreadsheet, but when they're put into the real world, it can have a hugely detrimental effect on the business. And that's where you need to have that kind of that ability to pivot and change. I mean, it's kind of like the analogy of self-checkouts in supermarkets. So they're introduced because you can save on staff costs, because you can have one person managing kind of 10 tills. And it also improves efficiency, so it gets the customers through the door a lot more quickly. So that's big tick. So they introduce self-checkouts across across multiple supermarkets. And what they're now seeing is that the shoppers are a lot more disenfranchised. They're a lot less loyal to a brand because they're not getting those staff interactions. They're not having a chat at the till. So on paper, that makes complete sense because it's financially driven and it's driven on efficiency. It ticks all those boxes, but what it doesn't get down to is the actual root outcome and the human aspect of things. And I think that's why any entrepreneur will always look at problem solving from a sort of a myriad of different ways. And that's why when we were doing our business plan earlier today, the finance for me, it's important, but it's not the primary goal. There's always so much more to a business model that can get overlooked.
I think that's what happens personally when a founder walks out the business.
Yeah.
So if it's shareholder led, it's very finance driven. I'm not saying that they're all bad companies by any means, but I think that you can't beat the passion of a founder.
Yeah.
If a founder was in that room and say their mission statement was to delight every customer, I don't think they'd have been able to put that in there.
No.
I've made plenty of decisions which have been detrimental finance-wise for the longevity of the brand or the company, because the goal for myself is for it to go on, not just earn £1,000 a day.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that when a founder leaves, completely, if they still sit on the board or something, that's fine. But I think when they leave completely, then that's how things change. And you saw that with things like Apple. Like, I think Steve Jobs, I don't know 100%, so don't quote me, but I think he left, the company lost its way and he had to go back in to get the way back again.
Yeah.
Because
it became
there's no visionary there.
No, because it became a profit only business, and it was all about profit. Whereas no
innovation. I mean, they lost out on AI. I mean, they were prime to take AI on because they had the market of mobile devices.
Yeah.
And they missed it, completely missed it.
Yeah.
Because they had the wrong vision.
And this is the reality of business, is that you can get completely swept up with the accounting and you can get completely swept up with allowing spreadsheets to inform decision making, but you've got to think, well, where has this business come from and how's it being created?
And where's it going?
Yeah. And why do people shop with us? Why do people buy from us? And it's the same with what I do, it's the same with what you do, it's the same with supermarkets, it's the same with Apple, it's the same with any kind of company. You need to have that. I mean, to go back to the point of the podcast, you need to have that instinct and stick to it throughout and be informed by things, but not led by them. And I think that's where a lot of companies go wrong.
And see beyond today as well, I think. So like your Blockbusters and things like that, if you have your Netflix versus Blockbuster had all the money to reinvest and everything else.
And what was the point of Blockbuster? It was set up to allow people to easily access media.
But what they did is they changed it to a finite of how do we get more people to rent DVDs.
And how do we get more people into our store? Exactly. And that was not the goal of Blockbuster.
No.
If it was, they would be Netflix.
Same with Kodak.
Same with all of these, and I think it is an interesting thing, and I think that for me, you know, and that's something that I think a business owner can lose sight of as well. You know, you go back to what adverse things have you faced in your business and what things have led you. It's very, very easy to allow the issues on the day to overpower the goal of what you're trying to create. You know, and that is the 5 to 10 year plan. It's not a today plan. So I think you know, from my point of view, it's gone from, you know, filming a cheetah running down a plant. A pot thing, you know, in France on a family holiday, to, you know, creating a brand that will help companies leverage video content to help them grow. You know, I get so excited when a client comes back to us and goes, "Oh my God, the sales have been phenomenal, the phone's been ringing up." That for me, I think for now is the passion. That's the thing that I look for, you know, and I like to find more ways to make that happen more often.
You know? Yeah. So you're sitting on it as a creative. But you're focusing on the impact, which is
exactly
good,
that.
Which is really, really good. Because I think sometimes as well, within the creative space, just generally, some people sit on the creative too much without the impact.
It's got to be, you know, the impact is huge. I mean, there's been plenty of times where we have advised clients away from using our service because I know that the impact, for the angle that they're approaching, their marketing strategy, the business model, whatever it might be, doesn't lend itself to video, you know, and I can't bring myself to create something unnecessarily.
Yeah.
There's no point. I want the impact to be there, and I want a client to want to work with us again. You know, that's what gets me really excited. That tells me we've done our job. The attention to detail within the creative is really, really important. You know, we are very, very, you know, we have big quality control processes in place to ensure that video content we create is absolutely the best that we can create within the environment, the space, the timelines, the budgets. But that's kind of 50% of the business. The other side is, okay, how are they going to use this content? What is it going to leverage? How do we communicate with their customers? If it's a TV ad, for example, we've got 30 seconds airtime to communicate and motivate, you know? And so the impact is I would say at least 50% of the success of the company, you know, and that is something that I'm very motivated to just increase and build on.
I think that's founder-led or mission-led versus finance. Because finance would take the videos that you turn away. Yeah, and it's the same as some of the companies that, you know, I'm with. One of the first things is we can't sell something that doesn't bring and add value. No. And there's been times where we thought it might and it hasn't, and we've taken it back. Yeah. Because we can't just leave a customer with something that's just worthless to them. But that's long-term goal versus short-term gain. Exactly.
And then you get. I mean, we benefit massively from word of mouth and. You know, and I think that you set out your stall, ironically, you know, and that says a lot about you as a person. I think that you are judged on what you create and what you build, and I think that, you know, you need to stay true to that, regardless of what people in networking groups might say to you and the issues that you might be facing that day, you know.
And I think that is a very good place to stop with a great closing statement.
There you go.
Well done. So we're about on time now. So thank you for sorry about that. That's my cold again. Thank you everybody for listening, and we will see you next time. Thanks, Jack.
Thank you, Michael.